Hey y'all, this is David with Liberty Suppressors, and today we're going to go over how to clean a silencer. Okay, before we get started, one thing you got to do before you clean your silencer, and that's be safe. We're going to do basically two things here. One, we're going to make sure that the firearm in question is unloaded, and we're going to look in the chamber and we're going to look through the mag well to make sure there are no cartridges in this firearm. Now that we've determined the firearm is safe to handle, then we're going to remove the silencer from it. Now we can set the firearm aside for its own cleaning regimen in a little while, and now we can get on to the business of cleaning the silencer. Some of the things you're going to need to clean your suppressor are the same sorts of things you need to clean your firearm. That would be cleaning solvent, an assortment of brushes. I have a stainless brush here and a plastic, and this is the classic M16 toolkit brush that comes in the military toolkits. Some type of tool to scrape the carbon buildup with. This is just a small screwdriver. You could use a pick or an awl or a scribe, anything that's got a sharp edge on the tip just to scrape some carbon buildup with. This works well for us. A little bit of oil never hurts anything. And then a couple of old cleaning cloths. These are from, just cleaning all sorts of stuff. These are those disposable shop rags, but, just some cleaning cloths. And that's all you really need as far as special equipment goes, as far as cleaning equipment. Special equipment would be silencer specific, and that would be sometimes there's a special tool that might be involved in the disassembly of the suppressor. But as far as cleaning goes, this is all you need. In today's cleaning video, what we're going to be cleaning is the Mystic X family of suppressors. Now, the Mystic X family of suppressors covers the Mystic X, the Infiniti X, the Cosmic, and the Centurion, and the original Mystic and Infiniti as well. So this video applies to basically 6 different silencers. The only difference that you'll have at all will be on the original Mystic and on the original Mystic and Infiniti, you have, instead of this wave lock, you'll have a little dowel pin and a notch in the tube. So the only thing you have to keep up with there is during reassembly, you line up that notch with that pin and slide it in. That keeps the tube from spinning. But the rest of it is exactly the same. Okay, the first thing we're going to have to do is remove our mount. Okay, this one has the Gen 2 mount in it, as you can see. The Gen 2 mount has 2 ways to remove it. One is with the tube retaining ring wrench. We made an update. Or 2, you have the Liberty multi-wrench. These 2 pins fit in the holes in the back of the FBA, and you can see it wasn't even tight. Even if I torque it, now it's super tight. You can just pop it loose with those pins, okay? And then you spin this out. Now, if you have this wrench, you can clamp it lightly in a vise, and if you'll notice, it fits over those teeth on the FBA. And then what you can do is you can actually clamp that in a vise, stand the silencer up in it, and break the mount loose from it if it's super tight. So that gives you another way of getting your mount out if you don't happen to have the 2-pin spanner. Once it's removed, the tube retaining ring, this fits it, and you just break it loose. This tube retaining ring should never be super tight. Just run it down hand tight, and then that's plenty. That's enough. All its job is to keep the tube snug. Yeah, the core will grow faster than the tube under use. So if you check the tube while you're shooting it, you're going to find that it's going to be a little bit loose. There'll be a little room in there. But once it cools off, it'll tighten back up. So it's not recommended that once you get it hot, you tighten this ring, because once you do that, once it cools and that core shrinks, this ring is almost impossible to remove unless you shoot it and get it hot again. Once you get that loose, typically the core will get kind of tight on the tube. So a lot of times we tell people, find you a wooden block and just bump it, holding the tube against that block, and break it loose. And once you get it broke loose, you can twist the tube and core and kind of cut the carbon loose. And if you put some solvent down in here, inside the silencer and get it wet before you start, this is a lot easier. And once you cut the carbon, you can wiggle it and then you can get it and it'll slide off. Like I said, this one hasn't been shot a lot for some reason. The principles still apply. Now the inside of the tube, we'll clean in just a minute. For this, all we're really wanting to do is get the carbon. All we're really wanting to do, I had a deer fly land on my elbow, I had to get rid of him, is get rid of the carbon buildup. And typically it'll collect around the baffle face on the first few baffles, and that's where the scraper comes in. I would wet it with solvent and just scrape it until it breaks loose. But you don't have to like get these baffles surgically clean. Just keep that in mind. Just get the buildup loose. The big buildup is all you're really after. The carbon's going to return after like the next live round you fire, so getting it spotless isn't imperative. Just remember that. Save yourself a bunch of time and energy. Okay, so let's go ahead and clean this core up. I'm committing the ultimate rifle taboo. I'm dipping my brush in my solvent. All precision rifle guys don't agree with that method because you contaminate the solvent with your dirty brush. Makes sense, but for silencer cleaning, it don't matter. This cleaning solvent's just for that, just to clean suppressors. You know, you see what I'm doing here. And the baffles only have a little bit of buildup on them anyway. There's not even really any carbon to speak of. We don't ever recommend using like compressed air because you're vaporizing the solvent when you do that, and then you'll breathe it. So I would always recommend just wiping off the baffles. Yeah, there we go. Just wipe off the baffles with a rag, and just, there'll be a little bit of solvent in the can, won't hurt a thing. What I'm trying to do is make sure that all of these surfaces are clean to where when it goes back in the tube, it won't fight me. I don't want buildup in here to where it's going to put pressure on the tube. It should go in fairly easily. Make sure this lock ring groove is clean. You know, you just take your brush and brush it out good. You don't want buildup. Carbon will build up in these crevices where the gas comes out past that gas groove. That's not an O-ring groove. The newer designs don't even have this groove. It's a gas trap. It's not an O-ring. So the older generation Mystics actually had an O-ring up front, but the newer ones don't. We use gas controlled bleed, and we allow the gas to flow into this groove and expand, and then that slows the velocity of the gas down, and then the gas bleeds out through the crack in between the tube and the core, and it generates a lower pressure signature. So it's lowering the pressure of the can while it does that. Now that we've got this done, you clean the inside of your tube the same way. You just brush it out. Yeah, it's not even super dirty in there. Yep. And then we run I normally just do the whole rag through the tube thing. There it is. Pull that through at a time or two, and then you'll wipe out any debris. Now I always like to oil the rails with a little bit of oil, because it makes it going back together in the suppressor a lot easier, and it makes the can a little quieter to start with. Just to be honest about it, you know, you're mildly wetting the can with this thin coat of oil on the rails. Even though it's not on the baffle faces, it'll still do its magic. And then we slide the tube on, spin it, as you can see, until it drops into that groove. I've already gotten a little oil on these threads, and I've wiped them off. And you notice which direction I'm doing the retaining ring. Once it seats, make sure it's in that groove. There we go. Now we can set the suppressor aside. Now for this, all we're going to do is just clean the carbon off of these faces. I normally don't use a stainless wire brush on these low pros because they're made of aluminum, and you don't want to wear through that anodized layer if you can help it. If there's buildup on this, and it will get buildup on it at times, Then you put it against the table and just kind of scrape it with like something like a little screwdriver, being sure not to get your finger in front of it because you don't want to stab your finger. You know, you do it like this, and you can kind of break loose the big stuff because you want this hex to be clean enough to where you can use it if you need it. Now let's tighten this. There we go. And now this mount should not actually touch that retaining ring. There should be a little gap between them. And that gap will vary from silencer to silencer. It'll, you know, some of them it's a few thousandths bigger and some of it's a few thousandths smaller, but there'll always be a gap. And you want that because that means that the mount is breaching on the core directly, and it's a better alignment that way. That's all there is to it. You know, and then just simply wipe off the outside. You can get all the excess cleaning solvent off the outside of the tube. A lot of times there'll be a little carbon buildup around the seams where the gas weeps out. Just wipe that off the front. Normally there's not a lot of buildup in the front and mostly inside. But yeah, that's all there is to it. So that's really all there is to cleaning your suppressor. So if you don't mind, go over to our social media. You can follow us there. You can see what we do. You can contact us. You know, go to our website. We have an email subscription. You can subscribe to that. So until next time, be sure to keep your powder dry. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.